How would this thing just get right? Welcome to being a YouTuber. No one's watching this, but somebody might. That's good enough for me. Right. No, I'm not mad at all. Sorry about that. Right, I might be watching. Oh, we have two people. Right, just bear with. I'm not happy with that camera. Right, no, I'm just going to leave it before I hello, how are we? Am I sitting comfortably? I've got my mouse because my laptop does not want to work on the keyboard, on the key mouse anymore, so I'll just have to use my seat. Right, let's get it here. Let's have a good look. Oh, that's a nice angle. That's a very, very nice angle. I thought I would try this today in this car because, well, it's best to just try something new, I suppose. I do apologize. I'm going to say this a few times. I got the date completely wrong. It wasn't supposed to be the 6th of May. It was supposed to be now at 8 o'clock. And for some reason, I had to put it back 15 minutes because I don't think anybody was aware of the change or the mistake. So I thought I would put a bit of leeway on that one. I don't know how many people I'm going to get, but hey, and we have, oh, I've got 3 people. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's really good. I do apologise if you're looking at my crotch. No, we'll cover that up. Nobody wants to see that. I've got my tea in one hand because, you know, it's still like, it might be the summer, but I don't care. I still drink tea regardless of what weather it is. Well, I say that it's the summer. It's supposed to, it's still the spring, but it feels like the summer today. It actually feels quite warm. Oh, good evening, Mr. Ben. How are you, Ben? How are you, sir? Long time no hear. It's been a while since I've spoken to you, sir. You must give me a message sometime and tell me how you are because I've been really busy, really busy, and I try not to be so busy, but things are sort of escalating a little bit for me in my YouTube. I say career now because it feels like a second job that I voluntarily do without getting paid for doing it at the moment. Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very tired. I've had one of them long days at work, but I can't complain now. I'm home, and it's the bank holiday weekend. Hence why I chose this date to actually do this video, because I thought since I'm going into the bank holiday, I'm going to be in a good mood to do a live stream. Live streaming is not something I can do when I'm half-hearted, put it that way. I have to be up for it. All that, the picture quality is very good judging by my picture. No, the picture I actually see on my laptop is a few seconds after, so, but that's actually a good angle. I quite like that, and I've used the back facing camera instead of the front facing one because I'm kind of conscious of the light situation. We are losing light rapidly. That makes absolutely no difference whatsoever at the moment. It might make some difference later. Good evening, Dave. How are you, sir? I'm not too bad. I hope I hope your extension is going well, buddy. I really do. Long days, honestly. Um, Darren Martin. Good evening, sir. How are you, Darren? Uh, Please let me know if you're on the full focus side of things or the rover side of things, because I I'm trying to put names to groups of cars here because I've got two divisions going on in my channel. So I try to group people, or people who actually I've had a bit of both or neither and have just liked my videos, which is gobsmacking, really is. So how are you, Darren? Ben, we'll drop you a message over the weekend. Lots going on here. Got a sad update on my Mark 1 Focus. Oh no. No. That's not good. That sounds serious. Like scrappage serious. Please let me know about that, because anything I can do to help you, I will. I don't know where you're based either. But if you're not too far away, I'm sure I can come and see you if there's something I can do physically. I've said that to a few local people. I would help people if I could. We have 7 people, which is more than usual. Right, you've got the blue Rover 45. Darren, I'm so sorry. You know what? My mind is like a boggle. Apologies, we spoke for a long time. You've got the lovely impression, Rover 45. Do you know what? My mind's a boggle. Thank you for joining, Darren, and I loved talking to you. And honestly, your 45 is an absolute smacker for the fact that you bought it for less than I bought this car. The sort of prices these go for when they've got problems are they're laughable to us, because they're not problems. People consider a slight head gasket problem as a major problem, but we would look at that as not a big deal. And that's the beauty of Rovers of this age with a K series. Yeah, honestly, just give me a message, Ben. Anything I can help you with, because it's not nice having bad news about your cars. I've had a few episodes recently of my own with this particular car, and that bloody, yeah, in the windscreen. So and then I have a couple more issues with the car not starting, but thankfully it was nothing. But it can get on top of you quite easily, even with one car. So let me know what the problem is, and hopefully I can sort it out. I had no idea what to do for a live stream, to be honest with you. I wanted it to be more of an update. So, you know something? I'm going to start a topic of conversation now, because it's something that I've discussed so many times with so many people about how rubbish modern cars are, literally how bad they are, and all the things I hate about modern cars. It could be the over complexity is the main thing I talk about a lot on my channel, and the over complexity without necessarily being any more reliable, most likely less reliable. I mean, most people that have come to me with issues about their cars, like at work, because a lot of people at my work, they know I'm into cars, they know I'm good with fixing cars. They don't know to the extent, because only 2 people know my channel, and I've actually physically seen what I do in my other life, because it does feel like 2 lives at the moment. My work is very different to my hobby, and most of the problems they come to me with are infotainment problems. 2 people have got Ford Sync in their Fiesta and Focuses. I do not know the first clue about Ford Sync and their issues, and I have to tell people before they go on, and just if there's something really stupid like a poor connection, I'd probably suggest it and maybe say that's probably where they need to look. But half the time I haven't got a clue. I really don't. I mean, to me, I just want a radio. This radio, by the way, is great. It's a Chinese retro looking radio. It looks like an old Radiomobile from 60s, 70s, but it's got Bluetooth. So I can play my music on my phone whenever I feel like it, when I'm driving on a long drive on the motorway. And that's as far as I go complexity wise with radios and infotainment systems. I just don't get it. In fact, most of the problems with modern cars are nothing to do with the mechanics. Actually, it is simply the electrics and the overcomplication of the electrics. And I know for a fact certain Ford have actually started thinning the copper down in the wires, so the wires break. So you get ABS faults because there's a broken wire to a sensor. Good luck tracing that. I have so many things that people that basically say, I've had a broken wire, or I've got a light that won't go out. Darren, over engineering is common now. It is over engineering because it's for the sake of change. And I said this in a recent video, where because car manufacturers are under so much pressure to keep changing their models constantly, they're just changing things for the sake of change, and not because, well, I go by the basis, if something works, don't change it. Maybe a slight tweak, but it has to be marginal. But manufacturers don't tweak things no more. They just throw the next design in the bin. I am not the first person who would probably question what is the structure within a car company for car designers. Do they get a different designer for each car or something? Like they contract somebody to design the exterior in a team of people, and then after a few years of working on one or two models, that team have disbanded. Some people have gone on in their career and moved on. Some people have stayed on, and then you get new people coming in with new ideas, and then suddenly that ethic of, the problem is with being in a team, a collaborative team with design, is everybody's got their own opinion, and it's trying to formulate an overall picture of what that opinion is, and you end up with cars that look like they're designed by committees, and that is sadly every single car in the last 20 years. This car was not designed by a committee, it was designed by a small team, interior and exterior wise, based on a Honda Domino, but they changed the HHR so much that there was more Rover to it than Honda in the end. And that was a small group, not a committee. Like, you have a committee for the dashboard, and then a team for the seats, and a team is too much. And you just get a bits and pieces car with no joined up thinking. That's crazy on the copper wire problem. It really is a problem on Fords. It is well known that Mondeo Mark 5s have this particular issue, and I suspect every other Ford. Copper is expensive, and car manufacturers are 100% going to try and cut back on it, because they're trying to put so much copper in the car to power all these gadgets and electrics, to the point where they've added a ton of weight, they've added a ton of money and value to the bill of what the car cost in the first place to manufacture. So they're thinking about how to thin it down. I mean, you imagine, I can imagine a scenario where if you took every single bit of copper and wiring loom out of, let's say, a Mark 1 Focus, and weighed it up against the entire wiring loom of a Mondeo Mark 5, which would be a bigger loom theoretically because there's more components in the loom, but because of the lack of copper, is it going to weigh any more? I'd love to know the answer to that question, but I've got a feeling that there wouldn't be much difference. And that would be, I mean, if you get any form of a short or spark where it shouldn't be, yeah, the fuses are designed to protect those circuits, but you're still going to get broken wires. You're going to get corrosion. You're going to get wires that are basically going to the ABS sensors in particular, and all these self-leveling rear suspension, which it's solenoid actuated. And a lot of Mercedes cars use solenoids to change the suspension level. I think a few manufacturers do that these days, and they've got all these wires going to these motors, all these copper wires, and they've got to be good wires, otherwise that's a serious issue. But yeah, does anybody else have any massive points to make about what they hate about modern cars? I mean, I'd like to talk about what's good about them. I think that dashboards are fantastic in modern cars. I think dashboards, the cockpits, I think most manufacturers have kind of sorted the design out, and they do look really nice to actually look at, because you're facing this direction, you know, all the time, 99% of the time. It's got to be good to look at. Whether or not it's good to touch or feel is a different thing, but they do look good, a lot of them. Peugeot 508s, beautiful looking dashboard. Peugeot suddenly got it right. There's so many good things that I would like to say about the design of modern cars, but it is let down by several things, really. Darren, I really dislike the adaptive cruise control and lane control. Lane control, is that when it buzzes off when you go over the cat's eyes or between the markers, between lanes, and you're kind of straddling the lanes instead of being in between two lanes, two marked white lines? That could get quite annoying. I can imagine that, to be honest. I think, talking about that point, Darren, for me, I've done it in a Mark III Focus because I learned to drive in a Mark III Focus, and that car had a lot of these lane departure warnings, blind spot warning on the door mirrors, and you had all these constant beeps from the dashboard, constantly warning you of things that you're like, yeah, what's this? The constant beeping at you is really annoying, and it is over the top. Adaptive cruise control, I just don't see the point in it, because cruise control for me, simple basic cruise control is enough. So, you know, you can choose when you need to go and press the button, essentially, when you need the cruise control, and then it comes out of it when you don't need it, and then it shuts off. But adaptive, it's taken away more control from you. And I just think if you can't judge the speed of the car in front of you, when you're merging, for instance, that is a problem. That's down to you, not the car. And it is that over reliance again. I just think if you don't know where you are between the lanes, that's a problem. And again, I think the skill of driving is being whittled down now so much that a lot of young people get in and they just think, do you know what, I'm invincible. I've got every gadget you could want. I'm never going to crash this, and then crash it. No adaptation is going to stop you crashing the car and getting too overconfident. Is driverless cars going to be an answer to that? Driverless cars will be driverless cars are a solution to a problem that shouldn't have existed in the first place, and that is people losing the skill of driving and not wanting to drive. That's down to the technology pushing the change, not the people. Usually you'd find that people, the way people change culturally and socially, that's the way technology should cotton onto that and move with the social change and the cultural change. But for cars, no, the technology should never be doing that. It's we have a funny one. Mr. Ben, modern cars are too heavily insulated, can't feel anything, and it can't feel the driving experience, in my opinion. Mark III focuses onwards, a case in point. Yeah, I agree. 100%, because I can tell you now, going from a Mark III Focus, learning the ropes in terms of driving and passing the driving test, going from that car, because that at that point that would be the only car that I'd ever driven, so I had nothing to compare it to. I got in my Focus, I ended up buying it. The first time I drove a different car, and what really caught me out with the car I ended up buying and keeping for 10 years is how floppy it felt. It felt floppy, it felt noisy, and vibrations everywhere. but more direct, more involved. And it took me ages to get used to it. It took me ages to warm to it. But there was enough for me to say, this is a good car, I want to buy it. And it took me a while to get used to that go-kart like driving experience. And that experience isn't unique to Focuses. It's pretty much every car after about 2010, maybe 2008 onwards ish, around that time. Any car afterwards, they tend to be extremely refined in terms of everything: insulation, sound insulation, vibration, basically vibration, harshness, and sound. Something to do with that, actually. I can't remember. I think I got that wrong, actually. But that's the focus for a lot of car manufacturers, improving those three aspects. And the difference is night and day. I mean, to be honest, the good thing about that is that driving a modern car, and you can drive it, let's say, 6 hours on the motorway from A to B, and you get out and you wouldn't feel a thing really. You'd feel a bit, you know, I've been sitting down for 6 hours, and if you hadn't taken a break. But in this, or the Mark 1, you'd feel it after a few hours in the same respect. You'd probably feel quite... so it does take its time, makes you tired, older cars. So in a respect, that's where modern cars have the advantage. But they just feel boring. They just don't have a feeling of connection between you and the car. You are way more insulated from the goings on of your car, even as the driver, let alone being a passenger. Being a passenger, it's like I could go to sleep. In an older car, as a passenger in another Mark 1, I don't think I could go to sleep. In this, I couldn't go to sleep. It's like that. Hey Adam, how are you? I don't like the fact they are using 1 litre engines, and yet the majority of them are just pushing the best part of 150 brake horsepower. They are just so unreliable and highly strung and don't have much usable power. No, and that is down to a number of things. It is the push for performance, but the push for emissions as well. There is a reason why there is just no such thing really as naturally aspirated engines no more. They have to be turbocharged because that means they can be smaller, they can produce less emissions, and be better on the fuel economy. But what it does mean is that they are highly stressed engines. And the EcoBoost, in the Ford EcoBoost, is probably the best example of this. There were many failures at the start, and I think they kind of cured it towards the end. But still, they are extremely highly stressed, and that just cannot be good for the engine as a whole. At the end of the day, any engine with a turbo is going to wear quicker than one with a non-turbo, naturally aspirated air system. It's as simple as that. I prefer naturally aspirated. I've never had a turbo car in my life, and I think that will happen at some point because I've got to do it. But not on a 1 litre engine. They may be, most of them are very low powered turbos, and they do get a little bit of oomph, and there is a bit of a jet lag, but not a great deal of jet lag because they're so small. The smaller the turbo, essentially the smaller the lag. I mean, I've seen people put bigger turbos on the EcoBoost. I mean, they must be mad. They really must be mad. That must be for rallying or something, because I can't see them lasting very long. And the LED headlights in new cars absolutely blind you. That is a superb point. My common complaint is, I mean, I have to wear my glasses when driving anyway. I do struggle at night time. But even, I mean, I started driving in 2013, and things weren't so bad back then. But the last couple of years, more and more people have been buying cars with LED headlights, as cars are now more widely available with them. Obviously, halogen headlights are being phased out in general, going forwards. And the blindness is so dangerous. When you are going down a country lane and you've got a brow of a hill and someone's coming the other way, and just for a split second I'm literally here like I'm going to crash, no, I've just missed him. I literally have like a flash of I'm seriously going to crash. I'm just going to have to keep going straight forwards and hope that I don't crash into him, because he's just blinding me with his headlights. Sometimes I think the headlights are not correctly set. A lot of them these days are set electronically. You can't just manually wind them up and down like you used to. They need a technician to plug it into the ECU and basically program the headlights to come down or up to adjust the beam setting if they ever go out of true, if they ever do. But I do think there's an awful lot of them with incorrect headlights, because there's no way manufacturers would have designed them to be so blinding. But even when correctly set, it's a big issue. My optician actually pushed, I'm afraid going to the optician these days can be quite expensive. I was trying to be sold 3 different pairs of glasses. So normal reading glasses, and they're not driving glasses. I have no driving glasses. I've just got normal reading glasses, which they are fine for driving, but they sell you specific driving glasses because they can actually self tint with the sun. So they'll sell you that for 185 quid. And then the third set of glasses would be night driving glasses, and these are to basically prevent the LED headlight flash in your eyes and basically dull it down a bit like you dipped on your interior mirror. And it's like, it's a solution to a problem that shouldn't exist. Halogen headlights for me are absolutely fine. The problem with halogen headlights is that they now look comparatively dim and slightly dangerous when you compare them to LED headlamps in terms of the brightness levels. But I'll just stick good old yellow halogens in mine, thank you very much. And I do not recommend putting LEDs in Mark 1 Focuses, because I've seen that done so many times, and it is illegal because the beam pattern, the actual headlights themselves are not designed for LED bulbs at all. The beam is completely different. So really good point, Adam. And there's something really lovely about a naturally aspirated engine. Free revving, smooth, and they pull cleanly from a very low RPM. Perfect. I couldn't have put that better myself. That is everything you want in a naturally aspirated engine. Not every naturally aspirated engine is a free revving. Depends what sort of torque they produce. If they produce high-end torque, then they can be a bit lazy getting off the mark. If it's low-down torque, then they can be off we go. Most engines these days are square engines, so they are roughly just oversized or undersized. So if they're oversized, they produce more torque at high RPM, and then if they are undersized, then they produce torque at low RPM. I believe that the K series is an oversized engine, I believe. Yeah, where the stroke is bigger than the bore. I believe that's the case. And then the Sigma is the opposite. It is fractionally the opposite. So the actual bore is wider than the stroke itself. Slightly different in comparison. Luke, hello sir, how are you, buddy? I've got your email, don't worry. I haven't replied to it yet. I've had a lot of emails recently, so bear with. I hate everything style, dashboard, overcomplicated. To be fair, Luke, I mean, it depends what because this is the thing, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I do think a lot of the newer dashboards, they might look quite complex, but if you look at them quite closely, I think they're quite aesthetically pleasing. I mean, Peugeots and Citroens, they have this kind of cockpit where I'm sitting. So this center console isn't like a block that sits in the middle. Everything seems to be like kind of pieced together in a big jigsaw with the dashboard, almost like the dashboard and the center console were literally put in the car in one unit. And it gives like an aircraft cockpit feel, almost like the old Saabs with all the gauges and buttons literally here. I think that's so cool, really cool, and there is a good reason for that. But the overcomplicatedness is, it's way too much. For me as well, good point about the thinking about overcomplicatedness. The average car now has 4 oxygen sensors. So basically, I don't know how that works on a lot of cars, but some cars have 2 exhausts, and they both have an oxygen sensor each, at the front, 2 lambdas and 2 post-cats, sorry, I should say. And that's effectively, if they were to go, it could write off your car. If you were not able to get aftermarket stuff. Genuine stuff would cost a few £100 for whatever manufacturer, and it is a big thing with a lot of cars now with their exhaust. The exhaust system with the lambda sensors, the pipes, the silencers, the cat, it costs more than the rest of the car itself if it was to go all in one piece. But obviously that's not the case, theoretically. But theoretically, that could be what you'd be looking at. Enchantress, there are too many driver's aids on new cars. Yeah, way too many aids. I'm just saying there's so many aids that now people don't know how to drive properly. They rely on the aids in order to drive. And unfortunately, it's got to a point now where there are so many accidents. I mean, theoretically, cars have been getting safer. So theoretically, there should be less accidents. But I actually had a look at the UK accidents, UK driving accidents on the road. I think it's mainly motorway, the highways data. And the data has actually gone up in the last 10 years compared to the previous 10 years, I think pre-2010. And the only conclusion I've got is people now have lost the ability to actually drive a car without aids. And I think that there's so much to be blamed for the technology on people's driving habits now. We have automatic braking, so people think, don't need to brake, car does it for me. And automatic brakes, by the way, rely on sensors, and they fail, and then the car does go into somebody, and well, goes into somebody, meaning somebody's car. If you were to go over a pedestrian, that's another matter. But the reliance on it is too much now. Too many screens. Yes, Luke, way too many screens. I'll tell you what I've seen recently. I think it's it's an electric car, and I think it's a Honda E. Oh, I can't remember its name now, but basically this is the modern thing now. They're getting rid of door mirrors. The actual door mirror with glass. Oh, I'm sorry, an actual mirror, not a glass mirror. They're not really glass. They're more plastic than anything else. They are being replaced by tiny cameras where the mirror will go. And you have a screen just here and then sort of on the inside of the car, which shows you what the camera is seeing. Why is that needed? Why do you need a complicated screen to tell you the same information that a plain old-fashioned glass mirror would? Are they afraid that people just keep whacking their mirrors off too much? That's just stupid. It's not going to save weight. It's made it more complex, and there's something else to go wrong. I mean, what if one of your screens goes on the blink? Well, that means that you can't see what's coming behind you. I mean, imagine if you're on a motorway journey and one of your screens decided to just die. Well, that's you looking over your shoulder. And I'm in a lot of cars now, because of the thickness of all the A, B and C pillars and the amount of glass you probably get that much glass. So this would be the door up to here. You get this little letterbox. You can't see out. So you're stuck with a car that you can barely see out the back of with no screen on one side. Stupid. Technology is brilliant until it fails, and I do see a lot of problems with failures of those sort of screens. I can't remember what the car's name was, but it's a Honda E something, and it is a good looking car actually, quite a retro looking car on the outside, and the dashboard is nice. The dashboard's got this like traditional wood veneer touch, but just with the screen. So you have the main screen in the front, excuse me, and the two mirror screens on the side. Anyway, most cars are autos. To be honest with you, Luke, I'm a massive fan of automatics. I know that people are going to cringe when I say that, but I honestly do. I prefer automatics as daily drivers. But what I don't like is the fact that manuals are going to die a death. We all know that the future is electric now, whether we like it or not. I don't like it. I think it's a complete waste of time. I think it's a subject for another day, but I could rant all day about how it really shouldn't be. And I don't think it will quite catch on as people or as the government would like. But the skill of learning to drive a manual, people don't need to do that. And people have realized this because electric cars don't require gearboxes. They don't require gearboxes and therefore don't need to drive a manual. So basically nowadays, the advice given to me, and the truth is, I was actually looking to just pass on an automatic when I did my driving lessons. And this was back 2013. I wasn't really bothered about driving manuals because there are many automatics out there, many choices. But the advice was get your manual license. You can have the choice of both, which I'm very happy with. And it was a good decision I made. But if you want to drive professionally, you've got that option. Nowadays, a lot of companies, so let's say you wanted to work for Sainsbury's as a delivery driver, all their vans are automatics. So even professionally, you don't need a manual license like you used to. 5-6 years ago, you would need a manual license to work in a professional capacity driving. But now you don't. So people think, what's the point? It is a sad skill to lose. And I think it means a lot of older classic cars are, not many people are going to want to buy them, which is why I think having older automatics is actually quite a nice thing, because these are going to be quite desirable. If you want to experience an older car, but as an automatic, there are plenty of choices. And I will be going to somebody in the summer with a collection of fantastic classic car automatics, every single one of them. I don't know if he's watching this, but he knows who he is. And I can't wait. Mr. Ben, excessively long service intervals annoy me. Cars are not expected to last anymore. Yeah, completely now. I think that's down to the fact they're just cutting the costs of ownership in some respects, and cars don't necessarily need it like they used to. I think oil technology has moved forward extensively, and in general there's not a lot that is to go wrong with a modern engine if you top up and keep up on the basic maintenance. Although no, they're not expected to last. They are meant to last about 10 years, and I am just going to switch this light on. That's better. Oh god, my face looks a bit yellow. Yeah, I'll tell you something, Ben. Electric cars are going to last even less of a period. I mean, I've now heard a lot of stories from a few people who've emailed me that they've got either a Rover or a Focus, which is why they watch me, but they've gone into the EV ownership, and they've been told at the end of 4 years of owning, I can't remember what car it was now, the batteries are probably going to need replacing at the cost of £2,000. 4 years. That's the end. That's pretty much a lease deal. So essentially what they're saying is just lease it. Don't ever get into the trap of actually buying an EV, which most of us probably can't anyway. But leasing is the way to go, because apparently that's how long some of the batteries last. I think 7 years is a common term that I've heard before, but it's not ideal. And it just puts me off cars in general, for period, EV cars. How is that environmentally friendly as well, if you're basically scrapping an electric car after 7 years? See, this is my point. They keep touting this as the way forward because it's no emissions. But there are emissions. There's loads of emissions. In China, every single EV car that is made needs batteries. China has shares in lithium ion. How on earth are you supposed to have shares and control over a mineral that is found in the planet and claim it as your own? I have no idea how that works. But literally, how environmentally friendly is it for someone to click, oh, yep, I'll order a new car, and then a car is manufactured in China, all the parts required to make it in the factories and everything else that comes with a car. How is that economical? How is that environmentally friendly? The CO2 stamp from a new car, they say it can be offset in a few years. I don't really believe them. I don't think that sort of wastage is good enough for me. There is a lot of waste with cars, and has been for many years, but that's not good. And that's why I got into the older car thing, because older cars like this would have been scrapped. What a waste. What a waste of a car, waste of metal. It's recycling. I mean, the place I work is trying to push, trying to get their staff to buy newer cars to be green. And my advice was, when I was approached, is no, because this car would have gone to scrap 6 months ago, and I've repaired it, put it back on the road. It is the ultimate form of recycling. That is what we do with older cars. We recycle them. We keep them going for longer instead of binning them. So in my opinion, instead of clicking the press button for a new car, I have actually lowered the demand by keeping an existing car on the road. And that's better for the environment. Yeah, Mr. Ben, I agree about the last 5 or 7 years. Yeah, that's it is roughly about that. 5 to 7 years. We're seeing cars 10 years of age in my local scrapyard. Stupid. Common synthetic fuel hope. Yeah. Yes, Luke, you mentioned about that. I've yet to have actually a look into that. Synthetic fuel has been spoken about for many, many years, and I think Germany started doing something with Shell. I'm not sure where they are in terms of that. The problem is, Luke, is anything that the demand for this fuel is going to be like that, because pretty much everybody would have moved on to EVs, or we think, in about 15, 20 years. 20 years. So in 20 years, you and me are going to be like, all of us on here who love older cars are going to be like that. And when you're like that, the demand is going to be that. And when the demand is low, the production is low. So the costs of making synthetic fuel and putting it into production will be higher. So therefore, you and me, we're going to be paying a lot of money for this fuel. Yeah, it's. Do you know what? I've always believed that we could come up with synthetic fuel. We've made synthetic engine oils. Why can we not do the same with fuel? Of course we can. I think we absolutely can. But it comes at a cost. And I don't know what sort of cost that would be, but it might mean you might as well not have bothered, sadly. Because I suspect this fuel is only going to be obtainable for people who, quite frankly, have a lot of money and can afford a really big collection of classic cars, and they are a little bit more well off. For people like you and me, working class, middle class, who, bloody hell, things are tight at the moment. I can't see many of us being able to put our hands in our pockets and pay for, I don't know, £5 a litre of this fuel, because that's what it, I mean, £5 a litre is a guess. I don't know what it could be, but it could be extremely expensive, to the point where I just think, yeah, it's available, it's no point, because I can't afford that. We need a way. We all need a pay rise. That's what we need. We all need a pay rise. Enchantress, there aren't enough minerals in the ground to replace all the petrol and diesel cars we have currently. No, that's what they keep saying about EVs. So theoretically, EVs are not going to be a complete replacement. They keep going on about hydrogen, but hydrogen is like, to manufacture, to create hydrogen is a huge process, expensive process, and you can't just convert an existing combustion engine into hydrogen. You can't do that. There's so many changes they need. They cannot use petrol injectors. You need special hydrogen injectors. So what you're going to end up with is just a custom-made hydrogen engine, and there's no point in that. You might as well just put you might as well put an electric motor in your car if you're going to throw away the old engine. I can't see how that's going to catch on. Luke, it's not that they want just old cars off the road, it's because it works for the master plan they have. Oh, is this the Pete's sake, you know what, I'm really tired. I'm losing sight of all my words here. I know exactly what you mean. Is this the 2030 plan, where basically you'll own nothing and be happy about it? That is what's going around on the media. The Great Reset. Oh, there's a few actually. The Great Reset's one of them that I've heard. I'm afraid I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I've got this thing about 15-minute cities. This is going around as well. I know they're not going to try and stop. They're not going to stop people going out of their 15-minute zones, but it is an element of control, isn't it not? Like anything this government is doing, pure control. But it is, they literally want old cars off the road because it's basically their idea of putting you and me out of my private car and on my bike or walking or on the bus like peasants, or on the train, because the trains are as bad. The trains are awful. There's literally, like, I'm not being funny, the Japanese, when they want to build a high-speed railway, they build one in a few years. They build it going over the cliffs and mountains. No health and safety there. They build it in a few years. Us, HS2, still isn't built. No wonder we're using Victorian railways that were designed over 120, 30 years ago. Jesus Christ. Kev, hello, sir. How are you? Good evening, Andrew. For me, hydrogen is the future, no electric. The thing is, Kev, hydrogen is very hard to manufacture. It's very expensive to manufacture as well. I know JCB have been doing a thing on this, and their opinion is you can't convert existing engines. So existing cars will stay like this forever. There's no chance. New cars, they're going to need a lot of infrastructure putting in place, put it that way. I prefer hydrogen to electric, but I don't think it's the be all and end all. I think hydrogen is more suited to basically diggers and trucks. That's what JCB have come across. There have been a few videos where they've actually demonstrated that this is better than battery. I mean, how many batteries do you have to put into a digger that is working 24/7 on a site? How do you propel that vehicle? You know what I mean? And the weight of the batteries, I mean, these things weigh God knows how much anyway, but they're going to weigh even more because of the batteries. That's no good on a site. Electric cars are nonsense. I know, Frank, they are just nonsense. Absolutely. I think we've turned it. I've started something now, but I can clearly see the passion we have towards electric cars, and I'm so glad people have got the same opinions, because the number one thing about modern cars is electric cars are shit. Luke Smith, yes, yeah. Adam, hi Adam, hello buddy. Evening to you, sir. Yeah, I know you're late to this. Sorry, don't worry, Adam. It was completely my fault. Completely my fault. I mixed the dates up, as usual. I agree with all the stupid environmentally friendly EVs and how polluting they are through production. They are. I don't believe the statistics were given. I just don't believe that any car that doesn't last for at least 7 to 10 years can offset its CO2 footprint from the factory. I just don't. Just don't. If you do excuse me a second, I'm just going to pop out and just check that my phone battery is not going to run out. Unfortunately, I can't check from this side. I'm going to have to get out and go around the other side just to check. I don't want the live stream cutting out. 2 seconds. Right, it turns out I've actually got to open the door. Let's have a look at you. Oh, that's fine. Right. About that. Right. Let's get the screen on. Sorry about that. We have plenty of life. Okie dokie. Oh, I've lost my screen. Why have I lost my screen now? 2 seconds. I'll catch up with everybody in a second. Ooh, sorry, I've lost it. Can everyone see me still? Unless it's just my laptop. Can people tell me if they can still see me? I don't know why my laptop's doing this. Oh, fine. Thanks, Ben. Cheers for that. For some reason, my laptop has decided that it doesn't want to show me what's going on the screen. Because I'm using the rear-facing camera, I can't see what's on my phone. So I'm using this to see that I'm in camera. And if there's any issues. Right, sorry about that. Oh, I'm growing looking at a lovely shade of orange. Lovely, lovely. That's the first time someone's going to tell me that I've got an orange face. Trust me. I am very pale skinned, I can tell you. Very fair skinned. Trust me, I don't tan. When I've gone abroad before and tried to get a tan, my skin just peels off in great chunks. I don't tan. I just burn. Right, Luke. Yes, 2030, 1000%. We are birds in a cage. It's what people want to do about that sort of thing. It's honestly, culturally, if we were like France, we would not be in this position. I think, I'm sorry, but I think the UK is, I don't want to get too politically faced here, but we're literally almost slaves now, and we haven't done anything about it. I just hope that people vote with their feet next year in the general election, because I definitely will not be voting for these bunch of pricks. Enchantress, they have been running scrappage schemes for years. Well, actually, sorry, going back to you, Luke, sorry. Do you know what? It's not just even a UK thing. It is a worldwide thing. It is seriously a worldwide thing, that all the hierarchy around the UK, Europe, they just, it is a total agenda. Enchantress, they have been running scrappage schemes for years to get rid of older cars. ULEZ is a prime example. Yeah, they try. I mean, to be honest with you, the 2009 scrappage scheme, the government have never ever announced a scrappage scheme since then, mainly because they know the backlash they're going to get from people. It was a bad idea back then. It got rid of a lot of really nice cars. I'm still, to this day, when I see the pictures of all these cars that are still sitting there at that abandoned airfield, guarded as well, because they know the value of parts on these cars alone, and they're just sitting there rotting, and nobody can touch them. The government does not want to sell them because there's so much money tied up in them. Well, what are they doing with them? It's just total waste of resources. It just angers me so much. And basically what they've done is they've encouraged manufacturers to do their own scrappage schemes. The ULEZ, we've got it in Birmingham with the clean air zone, where basically you agree to something and then you get so much off a new car if you scrap your old car. That's basically what it is. And I never had any intention. It's not worth it. Adam, EVs are too expensive, too heavy, complicated in comparison with older cars, and make them worse in my view. Yeah, way too expensive. People haven't got the ability no more to look after them because they are so complicated. I mean, you can't even change. I mean, if you can change a light bulb, because most of them are LEDs that just, they either work or they go pop and you have to buy the whole headlight. Changing a light bulb is quite difficult on halogen headlights these days when they are fitted to modern cars. And they've tried to eliminate the DIY aspect slowly but surely, and it has deteriorated a lot. Shane, good evening, sir. How are you? You had to clean yet more seagull poo off your Focus. That's not a good one. I would really recommend, I'll tell you what works a treat. You can use Tar Away, which is, you can use that. It softens it, basically. It's like a glue remover. Or Autoglym, do those bird poo wipes. They're very good. Do you park under a tree by any chance? Because I have the same issue. That's what I hated about parking here. Is nice because it's a little area that I can work on the car, but I've got this fern tree here, and I've cut 3 of the branches back recently. I'm hoping that'll make a difference. Adam, the 2009 scrappage scheme was such a waste. So many cars that had years of life left in them. Seen a guy on YouTube go through the figures of all car makes that were scrapped. Forgot the channel name. Oh, I must watch that actually, because I've seen some lists about what cars are there, and quite frankly, I stopped because it was too upsetting. It's just a waste. And I'm not being funny, a lot of them cars would be bought for good money these days. I think there are people that would be prepared to pay 500, 600 per car to take them away. And I've got to be honest with you, the government is wasting so much money on other sides. I just don't know why it doesn't want to release these cars. I just hope that someday someone in government decides, do you know what, we've got to release these. Look, it may cost us money to release them, but we're not gaining anything by keeping them. I don't understand what they're doing. I really don't. I don't know if anybody has asked that question about these cars, because they're just sitting there in this abandoned airfield. What purpose does that serve? I do hope that there is a campaign one day that to actually get these cars released, because the parts on them they're just like gold dust. Some of these cars probably contain parts that are now non-existent in certain respects. The classics that are being wrecked, the amount of Mark 1 Focuses that I see there is really saddening. Rover 45s as well. Doing fine, yes. Well, good to hear, Shane. Really good to hear, sir. I'm glad that. I hope you're looking forward to the Bank Holiday weekend, because I certainly am. I have got a lot to do. A lot of tinkering to do. I did quite a bit last weekend and met a few really nice people. And just done a search. The channel is Jeff Buys Car. Oh, I know that channel. Jeff Buys Cars. Yeah. It's a very, very good channel. Do you know the best thing about Jeff Buys Cars? I've actually met him, and he told me that he was literally going to give up YouTube. I think he'd been doing it for a couple of years, and he was going to give it up. And then he did some random video of him just doing a random rant in the back of his car, and that video went viral. It blew, like, did a few thousand views. I don't know what he was ranting at, but that must have been why it got so many views. And then since then it picked up like nothing. So I must ask him what he was ranting about. Luke, well, I was going to say, I'm surprised it wasn't an urban explorer, because I'd love to do some urban exploring. If anybody wants to do urban exploring, I'm sure we could get close, but it's I suspect there's guard dogs and everything, and quite frankly, I haven't got my shotgun. Luke Smith, because so many late 80s and 90s cars have gone, because 2009 seem hold on, sorry, I misread that. Because so many late 80s and 90s cars gone, because 2009 seem all of them gone up so much now. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They've gone through the roof, all these 80s, 90s cars now. They would get the money back. Whatever these cars were scrapped for, value-wise, because I presume they were scrapped on the basis of their value, so that you'd have got so much off towards a new car. Was it a couple of grand? I can't remember. But put it this way, a lot of those 80s, 90s cars, you get, if there's £2,000 tied up in each car, well, I think a lot of them would go for 2 grand these days. It's a fair question, isn't it? So they get their money back. In the car park, Shane, in the car park at the warehouse, there are lots of seagulls by the local McDonald's. But I park under the trees at home. Yeah. Oh dear. JM on Cars said he knew people during the scrappage scheme that wanted to save the Mark 1s that were going to scrap, but couldn't because of the rules. He did a review on the Mark 1 Focus. I know, it was a very good review. That I enjoyed his review. JM on Cars. I struggled to kind of relate to him, because I don't know, I haven't seen his channel enough to make a comment on how he's got to where he's got. I believe he was in the film, and he was in the film industry, which is why his camera work is top notch. He produces some really good videos. He must be very well off, because he has a lot of very nice cars. So as I say, I can't relate to him on the supercar front, but I can relate to his Jeremy Clarkson style reviews. He has definitely copied the Jeremy Clarkson style from the 80s, 90s, when Jeremy was just starting out. That his car reviews are pretty much that esque, and that's exactly, I think, the impression he wants to give. I think there's a lot of people that wanted to save a lot of these, and look, they're sitting there, and a lot of them are probably very rusty, but salvageable. Yeah. So I really, these cars are there. They are not gone. They are sitting there, and whatever sits there will be reclaimed, I hope, one day. Though I mean, what was I going to say? Like Hubnut, they took the Invacar, the Invalid car, as it was known. They were basically for many years banned. They were ordered to be destroyed, and a lot of people kept them in barns and sheds, which is why they all exist. The ones that exist. So people have taken it into their hands to keep these cars from going to harm, and eventually the government dropped it, and now these cars can come out and enjoy the life. And I do believe that in the reverse action, these cars will enjoy some sort of life, whether they are stripped for their parts and reused to keep cars on the road. I don't know, but there's money in that, and I think the government, someone in the government, must recognise there is money there. And you know, it's dirty to talk about these cars like money, but that's what the government will be thinking. Anybody who works in government. I've watched that JM video on the Mark 1 Focus review. I enjoyed it. I did. I thought it was a very honest, solid review. I like reviews like that. and I don't think there's much you got wrong. I have to watch it again, Adam, because it's been a while since I watched that video. In fact, I think the last time I watched it was before I started doing my own videos, so I have to watch that with a more critical eye. I think as a viewer, my critical eye is different to a subscriber, to a YouTuber who produces his own videos now. What sort of information would I put in my video? What sort of information would I consider that to be subjective opinion? Car reviews are very subjective, I know, but very much I try to stick to the facts, which is what I started to do with my own reviews and my Focus Mark 1 review, which was not a review, it was a buyer's guide. I didn't want it to be another review. Plenty of people have done them. JM did it. Right, I am going to go in the house because my throat is getting very, very dry at the moment. I do hope that you can still see me. I'm going to continue this live stream for another 15-20 minutes, but I am going to get something to drink because my throat is completely there. I can feel it going. 1 minute, have a sing to yourself. Right. Thanks for guarding my laptop, just in case anybody wanted to rob my laptop while I was in the house. You guys could identify the burglar. Good job to do a live stream when you've left people. Right. You needed some tea in that mug on the dash. I actually did have some tea in this, actually. I actually drank it before the live stream started, and then my throat's gone again. Oh, dearie me. I do hope I've got another sore throat coming on. Excuse me. Yeah, so, you know what? EVs, no, not for me. What do people make of EV converted classics? Do you think there should be a thing or an option? What is your opinion on converting classics, and when is it appropriate to convert a classic to EV? That's a good question. My own opinion to kickstart that is, if you have a classic car that is incredibly rare and you cannot get an engine for it, so it has no engine, it's an incredibly rare classic, it's probably a big classic, I don't know, a saloon or a luxurious tourer, and it has no engine and you can't get the engines for it, so how do you propel this car? Do you do a conversion and put an engine like a Rover V8 in it? That's people tend to put in a lot of cars. Or do you put an electric motor in it? Have a custom made electric motor and battery power pack and change the infrastructure of that car and run it as an EV converted classic. That for me is the only, for me, appropriate use of an EV platform on a classic. Definitely not. That's a straightforward answer, and Chartreuse. Thank you very much. People are 50-50 about it, mostly. It's one of them. Shane, what are your thoughts on the Rover 75? My manager has one with a BMW D100. Oh, the M47. I think they're very good engines. From what I've, they're very good engines. The diesel engines. The Rover 75. Well, I'm going to give you a brief outlook now. I am glad I've got a 45, because if I'd have started with a 25, I think I'd have wanted an upgrade to a 45. But having a 45, I would probably not own a 25, because I think it'd be a disappointment. A lot of people have said that. And because I own a 45, I don't look at 75s no more. I was thinking about buying a 75 myself, and then I just thought, let's just go for something in between. And for me, a 75 is a bigger car than a 45 exterior. It's much more modern underneath in terms of the infrastructure, very well engineered, but very heavy. They are constantly breaking their ball joints, drop links, snap springs, bushes in the arms going. They are very heavy cars on the suspension. Very rarely, and I've discussed this with several people who've owned 45s. Darren, we had this discussion at the Pride of Longbridge. I've never heard of a 45 with a snap spring. They never snap their springs. Very rarely do the ball joints get knocked out. They're just so easy on the suspension. The Honda suspension, double wishbone, and the independent rear suspension, perfect. And the weight of the car, perfect for the suspension. BMWs, they're always knocking stuff out. There's always something going wrong with them underneath. And the thing is with a 75, Shane, is I think they have to have had a complete suspension rebuild from scratch. All new arms, all new everything, for them to actually handle anywhere near as what they would from the factory. If there is something wrong with them, which there frequently is, they just don't handle very well. They don't drive very well. And also with a 75, the interior space is no better than a 45, even though it's a bigger car. It's just a thicker car. It's thicker and it's heavier, but not necessarily for the better. And I think the Rover 75, some people look at it as a design classic. I look at it as, this is the first car of many cars that are overcomplicated, but to the point of not being any more reliable. There are people that are going to say Rover 75s are very reliable cars, but you do need to keep on top of the running maintenance, and they are really good cars to own. I honestly think if you want as modern a saloon car as the 90s noughties will give you, I think the 75 is the top of the bill for what you pay for them, what you're getting. But I would look at a 45. Well, I'm not sure why you're asking me that question, Shane. Are you looking for a car? Is that possibly why you're asking me this, or just because your manager's got one? Personally, that's the best way I can describe a 75. Just unnecessary heaviness and complexity. Comparing it to a 45. Darren, definitely not unless you can get the parts. You can't get the parts engine. Yeah, that's exactly what I think. I think that's the only case where you should. You just lose all the character, don't you? You throw that engine in the bin, you lose the sound, you lose the vibration, you lose a lot of that driving experience. And I just think if you want an EV, just buy an EV. Don't buy a classic and then convert it to an EV. It's just sacrilege. You buy a classic to be a classic, not an EV. Adam, I'm personally not a fan of converting classic to EV, though granted, it's probably more eco-friendly than a completely new EV. I like keeping classics as original as possible. That is a very good point, Adam, actually, because essentially, instead of buying a new car, you're just keeping an existing one on the road with a modification, and that's absolutely fine. I do think there is a real warrant for a classic that has a faulty engine, maybe a faulty gearbox, maybe massive issues up front with the mechanics, and you just want to bin that and get something fresh, but not change the car, just change the platform. The only thing is with doing this is I would really get a bit funny about the whole, well, you'd have to get it you'd have to get the emissions tax band changed and everything else. Although saying that, with older cars, it's based on the engine size. That's the only thing you'd have to change, the tax. What would the tax be classed as then? Because there isn't an engine. Kev, if you were to put battery power in an E-Type, the car loses its soul. So it's definitely a no for me converting a classic to EV. Well, Jaguar have already done that with a lot of their cars. They've actually, that Jaguar Classic, the classic side of the Jaguar Land Rover division, they've actually done a load of things with E-Types, converting E-Types to electric. They've got all this custom made gear ready to go to fit in E-Types because they think that there's going to be a demand for this. Because essentially it makes the E-Type much more usable, because it's more reliable and the fuel economy goes out the window. And I do understand that to a certain respect. I do understand that. Drew, hello sir. If you were in your Focus Mark 1, that mug would go nicely in the cup holder. Ah, well, actually, I'm gonna say this now. The cup holders in a Mark 1 Focus are actually really poor. And the facelift ones, they're very shallow. They're not as deep as the pre-facelift ones. So that is a no. This is too big. You need a flask which is much more thinner. Unfortunately, I can't really show you there because it's quite dark at the moment. Now it's completely gone. There's nowhere for. I mean, I can put it in here in this cup holder, but it's for storage, and the door pockets are rubbish. In this, in fact, you wouldn't be able to get anything in there. I just have to put it on the shelf as such. I do like a good tea shelf, but yeah, it's modern cars are not good for that. Modern cars are even worse for this sort of stuff. You think the cup holders are good? No. The one thing I do like about a Rover 75 is the fact that you've got that push cup holder that sort of comes out the actual center console. I think that's a fantastically classy touch. Shane, I'm just curious for now, but wouldn't mind owning one Rover one day, maybe. Didn't the Rover 75 have coolant issues? They all have coolant issues if they are not looked after. It's mainly the head gasket, and that is not a BMW diesel engine thing. It's a K series thing where the original head gaskets, they tend to peel where the seal goes, and then you get oil and water mixing, and then that leads to coolant loss, and if you ignore it for too long, a blown head, and then it really will start going down and drinking the coolant. There's nothing to worry about as such. There really isn't. There's plenty of specialists who can do it. I mean, I've done my own work. Most people can change a head on a K series pretty well for about 500 quid, and that's as cheap as a head will ever be, because that's how simple it is. And then it will be good. It's really not something to be put off. The only thing is about a 75, if you go for a Rover 75 1.8 with 1.8 K series, the K series tends to be on its absolute peak trying to push a big 75 down the road. I do think that suits the 1.8 turbo version, where it's got more oomph to get it down the road. It's just too big a car for that engine, I think. Cup holders are too small. Narrow bottom cup, maybe. Yeah, they are correct. And a Mark 1, yes. Adam, cup holders in a facelift Mark 1 can only hold a 500ml pop bottle. That's how small they are. Yeah, they're rubbish. They are literally rubbish. I hate them. They are not practical things at all. That is something that Ford have probably improved on the Focus, the cup holders. Drew, and considering now with the Mark 4, you don't have a handbrake. You have I don't necessarily. Do you have a gear? Do you have actually a gear lever in the? No, because you've got the well. If it's a manual, yes, but if it's an automatic, I don't know. I can't remember, because a lot of them now, these twist rotary dials for automatics. Drew, my Mark 1 is pre-facelift and the mugs of tea fit nicely. Mackie D's larger drinks don't fit. I'm trying to think now. The last time I went to Mackie D's in my Mark 1, which would have been a few years ago. I don't go to Mackie D's that much now. They're expensive. I think the medium cups fitted fine, but I don't think I went for the large drinks, which is might be why I can't answer that. Oh dear. Offer some pre-facelift ones then. Do you know what? It is possible to actually swap the center console between a pre-facelift and a facelift, the actual center console, with a bit of alteration, but it's not a big deal actually to swap the two over. I've seen it done, but not many people would swap it over just for the sake of a few cup holders. That's the thing. No, we've gone on to cup holders. I like it. I mean, to be fair, I like a tea shelf. Talking about tea shelves, little Mark 1 geeky fact. The only Mark 1s that I've physically seen with the airbag delete option, believe it or not, that airbag, that passenger airbag delete option, which left you a little nice tea shelf, that was an option up until 2003, I believe, but nobody deleted it. It was a no cost option to have it removed, but a lot of people, you're paying for the airbag, so why would you get rid of it? So that's why you rarely see them without the passenger airbag. But the early S-Reg ones and possibly T-Reg ones, more of them you will see without the airbag. I'm not sure why, but I've only seen one on a video. I've never seen one in the flesh without the passenger airbag. That would be that's something I would probably see and think, oh, that car's worth buying. I'd buy it just for that feature, because then I can put my tea on that shelf. Idea. Right, I am going to end this live stream here because it's pitch black and I'm struggling to see my own screen. In fact, this screen is quite glary, and I don't know how well you can see my face. You probably see my face and it's all black around me. So I think it is fitting to end this episode of this live stream here. I don't know when my next live stream will be, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity just to have a catch up with some of you guys. I know I've got quite a few people watching this, but there are plenty of episodes coming on both sides of things, so stay in touch. I am like, I've got loads of messages on the Facebook side of things with my Rover thing and my Ford Focus Mark 1 thing, and then I've got my own channel group, so bear with if you actually give me a message. Give me at least a day or two to respond. I do try and respond to every single message, and it is something that I pride myself by. Other YouTubers may not do this, time pending. It's really difficult for us to do this thing, but I try, because I you know, the interaction with you guys is why I do this. It's not, I mean, I get a love out of the cars, but I get a love out of interacting and meeting people. And for some of you, if it's not possible for you to meet with me, then this is the best way you can interact with me, and I'll try to make it as best as I can. Kev, enjoyed the chat tonight. I have to go. Looking forward to the next one. Keep the vlogs coming. Always, Kev. You take care, sir. Adam, fair enough. Have a nice evening and bank holiday weekend. Take care and speak later. Have a good bank holiday, sir. Shane, you take care, sir. Have a lovely bank holiday. Right, I am going to get out the car now. Take care, guys. I will see you in another episode. This is where I have to go around the side. See ya. Oh, right. Have a look. That one. Ow. Can't even see your comments. Cheers, Frank, and cheers, Mr. Ben. Oh, cheers, Darren. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your weekend all. Yeah, you see my problem? I can't even see myself. I might get some of these made. No, stop stream. Where's my keys gone? Oh, hold on, the keys. Lock up now. Go away. Have a great bank holiday all. See you soon.